crazy how many women will never realize they're lesbians because being unfulfilled or disappointed in men is just taken to be a standard part of women's experiences. Like, no, honey, none of us enjoy doing it with our husbands. We just close our eyes and wait until it's finished. Men are all gross and off-putting, but that's just the way it is.
Hi, I'm Matt. So I couldn't stitch this because I wanted to show the full thing, because I'm not joking when I tell you that I've been thinking about this video since I saw it yesterday, and I'm gonna try and organize my thoughts. This person's a published scientist, they're a sex researcher. I completely respect what they're saying, but I don't agree with it, and I've been trying to see it from their side. I'm gonna start this with the proviso that if this is a claim specifically about women's sexuality exclusively, my questions are pointless. But since this seems to be a queer man talking about the subject, I'm trying to see like a broader universality to it. If this idea applies across biological sex and is applied toward anyone pursuing romantic relationships with men and finding them unsatisfactory, I'm asking two complex questions that how does the idea that women are accustomed to being unfulfilled and disappointed and subject to forced sex from men lead directly to women's failure to consider a queer identity without hitting a radical critique of patriarchy and the potential for victim blaming along the way? Ubiquity and systemic nature of the negativity of women's experience with men is acknowledged, but a systems level solution is not offered. What if, and I understand this is radical, what if the woman is not the problem? How can we classify the failures of men as a group to develop the incredibly low level of emotional intelligence necessary for somebody who wants to be in a relationship with them to actually live with the reality of it? How does that turn into a discussion about her lack of self-knowledge? Is holding men accountable still completely unthinkable in 2024? If a woman is continually in these awful relationships with men, why is the logical conclusion that one of her girlfriends was the husband she needed all the time? Why do you believe that getting a woman to satisfy the need is an answer to men's inability to do it? Has this person seen the phenomenon of incels and thought, well, what if those boys just tried being gay instead? This reads to me as a very easy way to not seriously critique patriarchy while using an interpretation of lesbian-coded friendships you might see among women in heterosexual marriages and films from our childhood like Fried Green Tomatoes or Thelma and Louise, trying to use it as like a foundational text for theory. If you find that to be sufficiently intellectually rigorous for what your concerns and interests are, that's fine. But I'm not satisfied with that. I still have a lot more curiosity here. It seems much more rational to posit a critique of patriarchy and capitalism and the way these systems encourage us to raise our little boys into terrible men that nobody can stand. I am just radical enough to believe that a woman can know her desires, and just naive enough, just utopian enough to believe that if women desire to be with men, that they are entitled to a variety of fulfilling and non-denigrating options to achieve that among men. I will not be told that this is asking too much for the straight women of the world. It's a tragic scandal on a profound scale that maybe the reason that men are trash is because you're not supposed to be with men is not considered a victim-blaming non-answer to a serious question with grave implications. This does nothing to solve the identified problems in sexual politics. I don't think telling a grown woman, well, if the way men are makes them impossible to be around, maybe you're a lesbian, is any less condescending than saying, well, if they'll treat you like shit, maybe you need to learn how to pick better men. It is a deeply pessimistic and condescending statement costumed in a brightly colored sundress. If you must center men, the Stitch creator's analysis completely avoids the observable experience that whether you're a straight woman or a gay man, there's nothing to choose from. Because we're still dating men, and our identities didn't change the experience of the fact. Enjoying alternative expressions of sexuality as a positive alternative for heterosexuality, as a way of asserting control over one's life, can be commendable, but suggesting it as a direct replacement of the actual sexuality you desire due to the failures of men as a group does nothing to address men's failures as a group. Opting out of a system you'd sincerely like to be a part of if only it didn't ensure your destruction does not make the world a less destructive place. It just means you'll stay alive under curious circumstances with the ability to watch people just like you, who had hopes and dreams just like yours, get crunched under the weight of the machine. Is the sound of women screaming and children crying the sound of freedom if the noises do not escape from your throat? This is question A. Follow me. This is a long one. If women who meet all of the following criteria, 1, have been in relationships with men all their lives, 2, have consistently been in deeply unsatisfying romantic relationships with men, and 3, have had fulfilling platonic personal friendships with women. Because that's what this guy's saying. If those women who meet that criteria should be able to trace their unhappiness in romantic relationships back to a failure of these women to consider bisexuality or lesbianism, does this mean that men who meet all of those 3 same criteria, if there are men who find themselves in mirroring circumstances, should they also be able to trace their unhappiness in romantic relationships back to a failure to consider bisexuality or heterosexuality? However, if he is not saying that this is exclusive to women, the question of this concept's applicability toward gay men is legitimate. From a point of social media and anecdotal observation, everybody knows that gay men as a group are more heterosocial than straight guys. As a group, we spend more time with women than straight guys do and have long established patterns of closer friendships with them. But at no point in time, not when we were 5 years old and running around with girls on the playground, or 25 years old running around with girls at the gay bar, did anyone think, that boy right there's a real pussy hound. Additionally, gay guys complain about their relationships with men in a similar fashion to women and their relationships with men. Because we are still dating men and our identities didn't change the experience of that fact. And then to address the whole, men are off-putting, no one really likes them, that's not just true for women. It doesn't seem complicated to understand why women seem to make for more fulfilling platonic friends for both men and women. The situation of socialization that prevails ends up with women acting like human beings and men being responsible for 98% of all the violence that takes place in the world. The discomfort experienced by others at a man's lack of regulation do not indicate some latent alternate sexuality. The lack of sexual response to men's worst behavior is not evidence of queer identity in women or heterosexuality in men. It is a survival tactic for all sexes until men get their shit together. We can't pretend that the same things that make them miserable partners don't also make them bad friends. Men know this and navigate around this amongst each other by basing their friendships on sports gambling, video games, films, politics, and other immersive experiences that do not require emotional intimacy to function as desired. When things get too hot, they beat each other up, they shoot and stab each other, or at least threaten to, but that's not emotional. Emotions are something only women have, and they keep them in a little box under the sink for 5 or 6 or 7 days out of the month. So if you go back and watch the original video, conceding that men are going to subject you to forced sex, because that's what close your eyes and wait till it's over means to me, and that they can't change their ways, it is so powerfully destructive for a heterosexual woman to hear that. Because to acknowledge that as an immutable truth, and I talk more about stuff like this in my video about right-wing women by Andrea Dworkin, but to acknowledge that as just fundamentally true shows her at least 3 things about the world. 1, what she feels that she needs, a healthy relationship with a man, is almost impossible to find. 2, it shows her that the potentially healthier option that exists, a queer sexual expression, has social risks that she never even considered because they didn't seem relevant till right now, and that option may not be fulfilling if she knows that she wants a relationship with a man and not a woman. So then the 3rd thing is that the option she's most likely to settle for, a deeply unfulfilling straight marriage, will function like smoking a pack of emotional cigarettes every day. Compulsory heterosexuality, like smoking, can be considered a known danger that increases likelihood of negative outcome, but it doesn't mean a signed guarantee of ill health. It might kill you before you turn 40. You could live to be 100 with no issues related to it. You might have a stroke because of it, you might have a heart attack because of it, and never live the same way afterwards. Like in this analogy, with either one, you're agreeing to terms that say you understand that from the moment you find out you gambled and lost your life, it's too late to get it back. I just find this to be a deeply crushing, pessimistic thing to tell a heterosexual woman because those guys didn't treat her like shit because she wasn't horny for them. That's not why that happened. That's not how shit works. It's not that if she was actually straight, she would like that they were selfish lovers and bad at sex. The accepted futility of improving men's character as a task denies them the ability to put enthusiastic participation and sexual activity in the same sentence. Men are not some fruit that women are allergic to and insist on consuming. The idea that queerness is some panacea for women suffering from men's excesses is a step away from suggesting that their grievances are as simple as replacing eggs with applesauce next time she gets so audacious as to try and bake a cake with a lightly stocked fridge. Let me try to hear you out. Even if that's how you figured out you're a lesbian woman, great. I have nothing but respect for my sisters. You will never get any complaints from me about them. But not dating men anymore doesn't take you out from underneath of how they're socialized. You still have to deal with them everywhere you go, every time you leave your house, every time you turn on the TV or look at your phone. You can't opt out of patriarchy. You can opt into fighting it, and you can learn to do that no matter what your identity is, even if you're a straight white man. In conclusion, if we're going to talk about the unbearable nature of the situation a lot of men put a lot of women through, let's have a real dialogue about the unbearable nature of the situation a lot of men put everyone in because of the unbearable nature of the situations those men are put in by other men and systems created by other men. Let's discuss the relationship that we are all humiliatingly forced to have with all men as a group. I don't say this as some all lives matter counter to the inhumanities women face at men's hands. I say it as a demand for a legitimate critique of patriarchal capitalism and the sexual oppression it inspires because it's crushing all of us, one by one, group by group, and we can't define ourselves into protection or out of oppression. If an injury to one is an injury to the whole, let's tear up the whole damn injurious system and all the pain that comes with it. We can find something that actually works. We absolutely have to, if this is our alternative. So this will be my third time saying, if this is only supposed to be an observation of women's sexuality, ignore me. If it is supposed to work both ways, I've thought about this. I'm trying to get it. Is there a hole in my logic?